Good evening, everyone, and maybe good morning for most of you, our listeners today. And welcome to this UMC and ISO IDMP special webinar today. We will start by introducing myself. I'm Olof Laglund, and I work as a content architect here at UMC, working with the content in WHODrug and also with IDMP related initiatives and work with how the content fits together. And with me today is Julia. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Olof. Hello, everyone, and warm welcome to our session today. I'm Julia Nyman, and I am a project lead working with coordinating GIDWG work and other IDMP-related initiatives here at UMC. And of course, before we get into the details, that would be great if we could give you a quick overview of today's session. So the plan is that first, my colleague Olof Lagerlund will start us off with some background on ISO IDMP to make sure we are all aligned on the context and the key concepts. Then he will explain UMC's role in this work and how it connects to the broader IDMP framework. From there, we will move into a discussion on global identifiers and explain how these IDs are used and why they are important. Then I will take over and introduce GIDWG, who we are, what we do, and how we collaborate internationally. Then I'll give you a live demonstration showing how WHODrug connects with global IDs so you can see how these concepts work in practice. And finally, as usual, we will wrap up with a live Q&A session where you will have the chance to ask questions, share your thoughts, comments, and so on and so forth. So let's get started with the ISO IDMP background. Ole, over to you.
Thank you, Julia. Today, we'll try to give you an overview of the work that we do here at UMC with the ISO IDMP standards and how it fits with WHODrug and potential benefits. Some of you have probably heard a lot of this before, but some things are new. But it's good to reflect a bit on what we're doing and why we do it. So why do we need standardization in the first place? Or more standardization? We have, after all, since the last 45 years here at UMC, like grouped reports together with different terms, different trade names for the purpose of pharmacovigilance via WHODrug. That's the basis of it. But as you can see here on the slide, we still get medicines coming out that trade names not always used when they are reports. They can be generic names and they could vary a bit. You can have umbrella terms that could be a huge pharmacological group like a whole disease, or it can be language variations or level of information. And all these, when you have a lot of different terms, of course, it will be a bit of a mess sometimes. And the more we can standardize, the less mess, the better for analysis in all purpose when we develop drugs and for the safety of our patients. Let's get on to the next example, where we have it's not like the countries, the regulatory authorities, or the companies. They know what they have in their products, right? And all of them are you can have local IDs for that, like for instance, medicinal product IDs or package IDs, as you can see here in the slide, with 4 different products containing the same ingredient, the same dose form, and same strength. But as we know, the pharmaceutical industry is global. Patients are global. They're based everywhere, but not all identifiers are global. So the identification of medicinal products, it's a global problem that calls for a global solution. We can go on to the next slide. And that was why ISO, I know it started even before ISO, started to develop these ISO IDMP standards, and the first came in 2012. Describing how to standardize that the medicinal product information, and doing that in different levels with different standards. And as you can see to the right, you can have the on the bottom you have the medicinal product identification standard 11615, and included that there you have like all the details for how you should have with excipients, etc. But then above that, you have the pharmaceutical product identification, the ISO 11616, where you basically you take the dose form, units of measurement, and substance, put them together, and get sort of a something that you can compare across the world, even if it's not exactly the same. And this PhPID that we called it, that's described there, as you can see to the left, you have the different in there, you have 4 different levels, and we get back to that a bit more. The PhPID in itself, as you can see on the bottom there, is just a long string, machine readable, not really human readable, but we cover that as well later on. So that was it all started with ISO IDMP for quite a while ago. Let's move on to the next and dig in a bit to these different levels of the pharmaceutical product ID. The first level is just the substance. Second level is the strength together with the substance. And third, dose form substance. And level 4 is dose form strength and substance together. And that's what we will talk about most of the time today. And show you, but we will also show you some examples of the other levels. So if we move on, then you can see that if we would have these PhPIDs and also the global substance ID that could be identified, I'll also talk a bit about that. For these 4 packages that we have, we can see that at least I know it's the same PhPID and the same global substance ID, because they are basically the same product. It's not exactly the same, excipients can differ and so on, but it's a way to compare. And even if you can't read all of it, you can imagine that this is useful when having a few different use cases, and I'll talk about some in the next slide. So some of the benefits, safety and pharmacovigilance, if we start with that, you can help to uniquely identify with the granular levels of the MPID, the 11616, for instance, but you can also use the PhPID to group them together to see that you get all omeprazole 20 milligram capsules in the same, you have a PhPIDs for those. So you could easier identify and make signal management on that. In the same spirit, you could use that for the shortages problem. If you are lacking an omeprazole product, you don't have any 20 milligrams in your country, you could more easily find other countries, other regulatory authorities with packages or strengths that would suit you, your need. And it could also be used for cross-border healthcare to compare the interoperability between different countries or within a country, depending on how your system is set up between different hospitals and healthcare institutions. It could also be used like for prescription, but then of course it will differ between legislation in the different countries. So you can't maybe not just use it straight off. You probably have to take a look at the details when you get to that start, that level of implementation. You also could have a better improved interoperability between different organizations, both regulatory authorities and companies, but also between, like, say, CRO and sponsor, so that you're actually talking about the same product and same dose form and strength and so on. And also between exchanging information when you know you're exchanging the same thing. But it's not going to be the golden bullet that's going to solve everything, but it's a great start and you can probably use it a lot, and especially in combination with other stuff. But as you know, the standards are covering a lot. I just touched on a few things now. And here is a snapshot of some of the stakeholders that we have working with IDMP. But let me say this more from a regulatory side, perhaps. So, and we know that the industry are doing plenty on their side and in different ways. And we do, as you will see later, collaborate with IFPMA, for instance. Apart when we have like for WHODrug with our WHODrug users, like a lot of you guys. But this is a snapshot here, and I'll start from the top with GIDWG. It's about global implementation, but I will just briefly say that, and then Julia will explain more in the coming slides. But I will, and then we have the UMC, and in this capacity, we are providing the global PhPID and global substance ID as the maintenance organization for those global IDs. And I'll, of course, come back to that. We also have WHO, for instance, support a lot of global IDMP use cases for low and middle income countries. And they are participating in all the other ones in our work as well, of course. We have implementation across regulatory authorities, and I know there might be a lot of interest with how the authorities are implementing and where they stand, and we'll see if we can get back to that in some other forum, but it's their place, they should say where they are at. But they come different way, they are coming, their roadmaps are a bit different for the different countries. But for instance, you can work together on some of the systems like the substance registration system, which I'll get back to concerning the global substance ID, but it's useful. We also at the bottom have the standard development organizations like ISO and HL7, some examples. And UMC is present in ISO, working with these IDMP standards, trying to bring the things we learn as a maintenance organization back into the standards as feedback when they are updated, so they can be fit for purpose. And also work a lot with HL7 and FHIR messaging channels to make that really available for these standards and how the communication and interoperability between computer system can work. And we'll see some things about that today, but that could be even more. We also have ISH, RPRP, ICMA, for instance, doing other pieces of the puzzle, but we won't go into those too much today. So what is UMC's role? Well, we try in all these groups where we're present, and we try to work as an ambassador and collaborator and really bring these perspectives together, because some parts of our organization will use the PhPID, for instance, the signal detection, but a lot of us working with it on a day-to-day basis, we are dependent on good feedback from you on how you best like to work with stuff. But then our WHODrug users, we also work with, for instance, PAHO, RPRP, EU SRS, United States Pharmacopoeia, GIDWG, Swissmedic, so a bunch of different regulators, EMA, FDA, and also organizations working on standardization, and with a common goal to improve the standards and the world safety for medicines. And one big mid part here, we provide a global PhPID and GSID as a maintenance organization, as I said. And on the next slide, I'll get back to a bit more on how we assign these and some details about that. We also we do provide a link between the medicinal products and the PhPID and Global Substance ID via WHODrug Global. And we will touch a bit upon that today, but there will be an October webinar on October 14th. We will have 2 sessions like today covering different time zones. So please register if you would like to know more about that. We just put the link for the registration in the chat. So look forward to see you there. So as I said, we'll get into the global PhPID operating model, as we call it, and how it works. And basically, it's that you can request a PhPID if there isn't one. And today that starts with requests from regulators. And it could be via an Excel file or using FHIR, like HL7 is working with, the FHIR API, to send in the requests. And then we take it on here at UMC, just like we do for the WHODrug and WHODrug related things. We validate, look at, is this really a product and how does it look? Which PhPID should it get, depending on a lot of the business rules that we have and that I'll get into in the next slides. Or map it to an existing one. Once we've done that, we generate the PhPID. We store it in a repository, but we can also view it in different ways. For instance, we have the IDMP search in WHODrug Insight that Julia will demo a bit later. And she will also show the PhPID publisher. We have, so you can download it with a FHIR message via an API at the moment. There might be other solutions. We might send an Excel back to a regulator if that's what they prefer, you know. We try to, we will see what's needed, but hopefully not more than a number of different solutions. But we will try to make this available for all, from like the easy to the more basic Excel to the more technical FHIR APIs. But let's get into the assignment of the PhPID. Here, a bit repetition for some, but we use medicinal product data from some of these countries when we did our pilots. We bring them in and we look at the substance, we look at strength and the dose form. And as you can see the little guy up in the corner waving the business rules, because the standard, the 11616, and combination with other standards for the IDMP, they are great, but they don't explain all the rules, and you can interpret them a bit different, and that also depends on your setting, if you're have it local, regionally, or globally. We've discovered that along the way. And so the business rules is very valuable to show when we do something that a regulator then might want to do it in a different way because they have more information, for instance. And we also posted business rules in the chat, or the link to the business rules, the public version. So you can take a closer look if you're interested. So let's go down to the different building blocks. The GSID assignment using UMC SRS, the Global Substance ID. Why do we then use the SRS software that NCATS and US FDA started to develop about 10, 15 years ago? Because it's really ISO 11238 compliant. You can have structures in there, you can have amino acid sequences, you can bring in modifications. So it's really versatile, you can do a lot with it. And so it's the ongoing also to standardize how to put information in there, but it's really a good way to have it. And not only the US are using it, we are then, UNCSRS, EMA are using it, Germany, United States Pharmacopoeia, and companies such as JSK. We are another thing with when you can have this program is that you can use hierarchies and relationships between different substances in different ways. And it's open source. And one thing we really appreciate at UMC is that we get warnings and duplication checks to see if we get the same substance in twice and so on. So when you have this the information you need to assign a substance ID according to the 11238, the substance standard, then it's really useful to have this. And hopefully you minimize duplications and changes in the end for the users, and you can do more. And the software also allows you to assign unique IDs. Quickly touching upon the strength, we do have, it might be straightforward when you have like a tablet containing 500 milligrams. Then you know it's 500 milligrams, it's the strength. But then you could have other products that could have strength expressed as concentration or presentation, like the whole vial, like 5 milligrams, but not stating the amount or knowing that it's 1 milligram per milliliter. So using business rules, categorizing different types of products, we have sort of made it as a first step to choose the correct strength. So we get the consistency over time, even if different countries express the strengths differently across the field. It could also be that easy as 1 milligram or 1,000 milligram or 1 gram. What should you use? The number 1 or the number 1,000 and which unit? And we need business rules for that. So all of that we have collected around the strength. And then you have the third pattern as well, I should mention. It's the delivery rate over time. And then we move on to the third building block in this, and the dose form. And the dose form has been a tricky one that we've worked quite a lot with over the years, because if you look globally at dose form terminologies, they don't really match one-to-one to a large extent. Sometimes 20%, sometimes 60%, and it's not really, it's getting hard when you really want to compare products on a global scale, when it's hard to do the mapping. And to get around this and have the consistency in assignment, we utilize the global dose form attributes that are based on the EDQM dose form attributes. And we actually published a paper on this last week, as you can see here on the slide. And please read it and see how we landed in this solution, and where we described the challenges that we had in a more detailed manner, of course. And taking a quick look at the slides that, similar slide that we showed before with a different level. Then we have the level 1 with the GSID derived from the UMC SRS. We have strength and substance. We have solution, tossing them on, as you can see, but it's small asterisks. And hopefully you can read, I see that it's a bit small, but it says dose form characteristics, solution, injection, parental, conventional. So that's something you can read about in the paper, more of the details there, how it works. And then you have the level 4 with all attributes, all the building blocks there. But then you have WHODrug connected to that, where you can have additional information. And in this case, it's like country of sales, trade name, marketing authorization holder. But that could in turn be connected to the national medicinal product identification number or code, such as the NDC code or the PMS ID for Europe, NDC for Europe, or any other local national code that you would have. So you have all this together. And that was all for me for now. Looking forward to hear your questions, and let Julia continue.
Yes, thank you so much, Olaf. And let's move on. So here is the same IDMP landscape slide again. As Olaf has already mentioned, there are many organizations contributing to global IDMP. the regulatory authorities, STOs, global health bodies, etc., all playing important roles in developing the standards, managing the data, and ensuring readiness for adoption. However, let's focus on the top one here highlighted in yellow. It is GIDWG that brings all this perspective together in one place, focusing on global IDMP implementation. So GIDWG stands for Global IDMP Working Group and serves as coordinated actions that work across different countries and systems. And it serves as a truly global forum for IDMP subject matter experts as well. And here we can exchange ideas, align on technical details, and plan our projects. Right, moving on to a little bit of the background on GIDWG, and it has been launched back in 2021, and it was as an outcome of a workshop, WHO workshop on IDMP in Geneva. And the rationale behind was that there was no organization dedicated to global IDMP implementation. And our focus since that has been to develop business rules, processes, technical solutions, operating model, everything that is needed to support and maintain global IDs. And for now, our scope has always been marketed products. So basically, GIDWG acts as a bridge, if you will, between all these international players. So, and we do our best to ensure that global IDs that we create are not only technically correct, but also usable in real world processes across different regions. Moving on to a member organizations here. So the founding members of GIDWG are Uppsala Monitoring Center, EMA, and US FDA. These three organizations laid the groundwork for the group's activities on a global scope. Since then, many other have joined. So we were happy to welcome Health Canada, Swissmedic, Anvisa in Brazil, Saudi FDA, Thai FDA, NOMA from Norway, UK MHRA, Coffee Priest in Mexico, El Salvador, and of course, even the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers and Association has joined us a year ago. And this mix of founding leadership and new members ensures that GIDWG benefits from both continuity and fresh perspectives, making our group a truly global collaboration. Yes, and just a few words on our journey. So, a PhPID journey. And we started back in 2020 with the feasibility study, where we assessed where the global approach to pharmaceutical product ID could work in practice at all. Um, then in 2021, we moved into the dose form pilot since the previous pilot has demonstrated that IDQM pharmaceutical dose form as per ISO standards are quite challenging to apply on a global scale. So this pilot allowed us to test the concept of describing the dose form with 4 IDQM attributes, as Olaf has mentioned a couple of minutes ago, on a smaller scale, and then refine our methods. Then by 2022, GIDWG was launched and 5 projects were in full swing. Each project was dedicated to one of the building blocks, the substance, the dose form, and the strengths. And also we've been working with FIRE and of course operating models. So they were 5 in total. All right. And of course, these projects lay the groundwork for the technical and operational framework that we have today. Yes, 2023, we transitioned into a larger scale end-to-end testing. Quite important milestone for us, bringing in even more countries. to ensure the system works across the diverse regulatory environments. And then last year, 2024, we focused on polishing our processes, business rules, and technical solutions, and preparing for real world deployment. And looking ahead to early 2025, so what we are busy right now, we anticipate pre-production PhPID adoption, starting with extensive dataset from some countries, as well as the selected dataset from US and European Union due to larger volumes in those regions. So in just a few years, we've gone from an idea on paper to a globally tested system on the brink of implementation. However, let's focus on the most recent and important projects. Just a couple of words on the end-to-end testing. So here the purpose was to validate the entire framework. So the processes, the business rules, best practices, the software, of course, operating model for global IDMP implementation. And we have concluded it successfully with about 90% of medicinal products processed correctly. And the deliverable was a robust, globally tested PhPID operating model ready for broader adoption. Yes, let's move on to the Go Live readiness pilot that we basically, the goal with that was to address the remaining 10% of cases where we had been facing trickiest scenarios like substances, mixtures, unique or non-standard formulations, for instance, and cases where business rules weren't that clear. And we had also to address operating model gaps, such as things like harmonization insufficiencies and variation in data quality standards. And the outcome was that all the findings were resolved, all the risks were mitigated, meaning that were confident by the, let's say, Christmas last year that the system is ready for production. Yes, and finally moving to our current project called pre-production PhPID adoption. And looking ahead, 2025 marks the start of so-called pre-production PhPID adoption, a very essential milestone for us, of course. So we began with the pre-production plans, recruiting the participants, um, trying to select the data sets, and of course, the plan is that by Q1 2026, we will have the first global PhPIDs rollout using production business rules, which will serve as a preparation for full adoption. From there, the rollout will expand, and in early 2026 to Q1 2027, we'll bring new participants, new countries, new data sets, and perhaps even addressing the remaining sets with a little more complex substances or formulation, leading to the second PhPID rollout. After that, the idea is to move into very complex substances that would be perhaps left from 2026 and recruit additional new countries, culminating to the third global rollout planned from Q2 2027 onwards. So the path from 2025 onwards is a structured, phased adoption, starting small, then scaling globally. And that was pretty much it on GIDWG and our work for today. Um, and finally, as promised, since we've covered the background and it's time to see how all this works in practice. So let us walk you through a quick demo showing how WHODrug Global connects with our global IDs. So please give me 1 second. I will just switch switch the screens so I can share WHODrug insights. Here we go. And certainly many of you have seen this landing page multiple times. WHODrug insight, drug search. And imagine, for instance, that we have a shortage, drug shortage in Brazil on a product called Gastrium. So here we have our product as a third record here below in the table. And we are particularly interested in omeprazole formulated as 40 milligrams in capsules. So what would be the fastest and most efficient way to find a substitute, to search for interchangeable, if you will, medicinal products on a global scale? Yes, that's a good question. So let's explore ISO IDMP search, our new functionality. And here we can see that there are multiple ways of searching. So we could start with searching on the medicinal product name, and we perhaps should even specify that we would like to have the one containing omeprazole, including basin salts. Yes, so here we go. Gastrium as a second record here in the table below. And also please note that the information fields are quite similar to the drug search functionality. So we have here medicinal product name, we have the drug code, active ingredient, ATC, codes connected, WHODrug medicinal product ID, WHODrug MPID, which is a unique ID that is linked to each medicinal product, authorization country, marketing authorization holder, dose form, and the strength. And then finally, we come to a PhPID and PhPID level. So here, we could take and copy the PhPID level 4 that we have displayed here in ISO IDMP search. And then we could search based on PhPID. As you can see, our list increased to 56 rows in just a second. And all these medicinal products, they are sharing here on the right the same PhPID level 4. That means that they are sharing exactly the same ingredients, dose form, and strength. However, they have various trade names. They certainly are being authorized in different countries here and marketed by different holders. They are also being assigned unique WHODrug MPIDs. Yes. And here we have also the rest of the PhPIDs connected to the fourth level. Well, PhPID alone doesn't say so much, so we thought about that too. And we developed here at UMC a dedicated, as Olaf mentioned, application for only PhPIDs exclusively, that it's called Global PhPID Publish, where we can publish and store our PhPIDs. And here you can see how information is displayed. So we have up here the fourth level and then the rest of the levels here. Also, in human readable format, we have the building blocks. We have the administrable dose form that is being described with the IDQM4 dose form attributes. So it's a capsule, swallowing, oral, delayed, and then we have the substance name, the link to GSID, and the strength. Right. So of course, we could even go back to ISO IDMP search here and try to expand our search and try to search on the third level instead, meaning that now our list will expand to 153 medicinal products worldwide, because we are now grouping the medicinal products based on active ingredient and the dose form. However, we are accepting even products that are containing 20 milligrams or 10. Yes, and this is how the third level is being displayed in Global PhPID publisher. So we have the substance and the dose forms, right? Yes, and level 2, certainly we can give it a shot and go for the second level, and then we focus on the active ingredient and group them on the two elements, so the substance and the string. So we are allowing even different dose forms here. So for instance, capsules, but even we have the tablets here in Switzerland, for instance. Back to publisher here again, just a quick look how it is being displayed in the publisher. So we have the substance and the strings, no dose form. Yes, and of course, the first level, and we go and search or group products only on the substance level. And here we have 212 medicinal products from different countries with different dose form and different strings. And of course, these lists are currently increasing since we are working hard processing the data in the scope of the pre-production PhPID adoption project. So all this is work in progress. Yes. And just another smart option how to search for our product in case we have only medicinal product ID available. So we can go and copy WHODrug MPID, that eventually the plan is to connect them to national IDs, as Olaf has mentioned as well. So, and we go to WHODrug MPID search here. So we copy paste it and we search, and here we have our shortage product, right? And here we have a very smart filter. We can go and search in the United States, for example, or Saudi. And we can aggregate, once again, all these medicinal products that are sharing this same PhPID level 4. So this is just another way of searching and grouping information on medicinal products. And that was all on ISO IDMP search functionality in WHODrug Insight for today. However, if you recall, we mentioned FIRE while introducing operating model in the beginning of the webinar. So let us show you how PhPID can be also published via FIRE-compatible resources using IPI. So what we need to do, we can just copy our PhPID, and then we go to this URL. So we paste it here, and here on the screen, you can view the tree. And this is how PhPID information looks like in the FIRE compatible resource. Here we have the ingredients. So we have the omeprazole here below. Then we have the strength. Also, all the PhPID levels connected. Plus, we have the dose form displayed here as the 4 dose attributes. So we have the basic dose form capsule, we have the administration method, we have the intended site, and release characteristics delayed here. Yes. And that was it for today on our side. So thank you so much for listening. Let us now jump to the Q&A and see if we have any questions. Welcome back, Olof.
Thank you. And now I got one, I think, here. What would be the best way to export the data you retrieve? Well, if I'm not the technical guy all the time, but I think if you have the means and capacity to do it with the Fire API, for instance, to have that, that's an easy way to know that you can send the right things. Apart from what we were supposed to show you, where you could see that if you just publish what you have in the tree from the fire, it's basically, it's not only fire, it's could be like it's computable, readable format. And you can also set up different functions in request and so on if you're a regulatory authority. So the computers can do a lot of the talking, and then by minimizing what we experienced both in the IDMP and also WHODrug, that you get like the information in different ways, then you have to sort the information out. So I would go for a definite technical solution, and if you have more questions of that, please reach out, and we have people who are even better can talk about that. Let's see. And then we have thanks for the demo. Will the PhPID search have the functionality of the search result being able to export same as Insight does? More or less, I would think so. It should be. I don't know exactly, and that's probably also depending on how it will be used. We had this webinar this morning. Also got a question similar to this about the PHP available and when are you supposed to use it? And since it's not implemented really yet in any countries, we don't really know when it will be up there and how it will be used. But of course, we will listen in to see if the users have any feedback in that capacity. Or maybe it will be more that you use it through the regulator. So looking forward to answer that in a year or two or something.
Yes, here we have another one. How will this information be used for coding with WHODrug? Will this change how we code? Well, that's probably would improve the coding significantly, right, Olof?
Yes, it might not be that for some studies, perhaps it's just WHODrug there, but you can imagine if you get this, that you have a PhPID on all the products, maybe connected to the barcode, for instance, then maybe you could scan and get more information even from the things you use for concomitant medications, for instance. But we don't know how the countries will implement the PhPID and where it will be available and how. So in some cases, it might not change that much, but in other cases, it might be that you get more information than if you have the PhPID about the dose form, for instance, compared to if you just have a trade name. But in other cases, it might just be WHODrug that will be the main thing. So we are looking forward to that. And then we have, what are the recommendations for industry in using the PhPIDs? Any preparedness is required? I don't know. I must say, because it's I think they will be there, and they will be certainly on the different like for the ICSR, it's already in the ICH standard there, but it's also up how the regulators will implement and when they will do it. So, of course, the industry probably needs to adapt in some way, but it might differ from different countries what they demand that you should do. So it's I have to pass that on to the regulators, or do you have
Yes.
any idea, Julia?
I just we have been interviewing members from GIDWG, and one of the use cases within PV was the SUSERs. So basically, processing the reports, and sometimes the trade names are not reported carefully. So that was the use case that was mentioned. So PV, we would guess. Yes.
Yes, and then perhaps I can answer both of these directly. Both are concerning regulatory authorities and how they want to implement and expected timelines and so on. And we can't really answer for that and be sure. So you have to get more direct information, or they can present. And the next question was similar in a way that that we really can't explain why use MPID requires the NDC instead of the WHODrug code, but because it's a national code, I think, but national authorities have their own codes, and WHODrug is a different way. It's a global dictionary. So, but I guess that's for the US colleague at FDA to explain. Let's see, we have some more questions. I just try to get them on the board here.
So why were there more products on the third level than on the second level in the example that we saw? So perhaps that for the omeprazole case, on the third level, where we allow different strengths and aggregate on the dose form and substance, there were at the moment more products available in the different strengths. However, when we don't accept other strengths, and we focused during when we were grouping in the second level, then we just said, okay, we accept only 40 milligrams, but we can go for more dose forms formulation. So then for particularly omeprazole, it was coming only in capsules and tablets. So probably that's why the lists were different in that way. But I do believe that each substance is different in that sense.
Yes, thank you. And as you can see now, probably we have more questions because time is running out. So we'll, and please, if you, most of these are anonymous, but if you still would like an answer, please send to the WHODrug support, and then we'll try to answer it afterwards. But we can see, if we take the top one, let's go from top. Any modification on the pharmaceutical dose from data element in the WHODrug dictionary in order to align with ISO and IDMP? Julia, or should I?
What's up? Yeah, please go ahead.
Basically, no, because the WHODrug uses the pharma dose form, and since we're using the global dose form attributes, we are easy doing this so we can map. But it could be that we are doing modifications, changes, because when we look at all the data we get from the regulators, sometimes we see that we need to update to make it that yeah improve WHODrug. But it's not due to the ISO IDMP, the PhPID. It's more due to that we get more better information and take a closer look at them. And
Yes, now we have 1 minute left.
and we can take the last one. Does IDMP incorporate information herbal health products? Yes, IDMP incorporates all of that in the standards, but so far we have no PhPIDs for herbals as yet, but it's in the pipeline, probably a few years down the line. And see, we're running out of time, so thank you very much for listening in, and we appreciate all the nice questions and the discussions, and looking forward to see you again soon.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for listening in. Goodbye.
Goodbye.